press record and let's get started. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today for our discussion with Kelly Mirbot. My name is Sarah Simmons, and I'm the Community Relations and Events Co-Lead for the Americas Region WORG Leadership Team. And I'm so excited to be able to plan this event with Kelly as sort of a send-off to 2020. Kelly provides executive leadership coaching and training to company executives in the technology, biotech, transportation, real estate, city government, marketing, public relations, and manufacturing fields, including Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 corporations such as Virgin America, Walt Disney World, Sony Records, and more. Kelly's more than 20-year background of coaching using modern cognitive psychology and psycholinguistic methods provides her clients with self-awareness, self-reliance, accountability, communication, persuasion skills, conflict resolution, diversity and inclusion skills, and awareness of multi-generational workplace factors. So I am as I said, I was really excited to work with Kelly, and I'm really excited to be able to introduce her to everyone and her talk on allyship. So over to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So I invite all of you to silence your cell phones and put them away. Let's turn off all notifications so our focus isn't pulled. Ground your feet on the floor or the ground beneath you. And I invite you to take 3 deep breaths and close your eyes and just listen. Okay? Welcome to people of all genders, including but not limited to people who identify as women, men, trans, genderqueer, or others. Welcome to people of African descent, Black, African American, Asian descent, Arab descent, European descent, those who identify as Hispanic, Latinx, people indigenous to this land, and people of mixed and multiple descents. Welcome to people with disabilities, both visible and invisible. Welcome to gay, lesbian, bisexual, heterosexual, pansexual, queer, or others for whom none of these labels fit. Welcome to your bodies and the different ways you experience yours. Welcome to survivors. Welcome to people who identify as activists and people who don't. Welcome to single, married, partnered, dating, in monogamous relationships, or polyamorous relations. Welcome to people of all ages. Welcome to your emotions: joy, bliss, grief, rage, indignation, contentment, disappointment, happiness, and playfulness. Welcome to those who support you to be here. Welcome to children. Welcome to pets. Welcome to those who have members of their family, genetic or otherwise, present. Welcome to people with different faiths, religious traditions, faith practices, private practices not belonging to a tradition, agnostics, atheists, and seekers. Welcome to those dear to us who have died. And welcome to our elders, those here in this room, in our lives, and those who have passed away. Now I invite you all to take a moment, if you're moved to invite the other aspects of our diversity that you would like to welcome into this space. I invite you to put that in your chat now. Okay. And finally, I'd like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land where we are now, and I'd like to acknowledge them and invite their spirits into this place. So welcome to all of you. I always like to start with a note of appreciation, and none of this would have been possible without Julia Hernkovich, Ariel Kruger, Lee Pullen, and of course, the incredible Sarah Simmons for the opportunity to speak to all of you. They're an incredible group of action-oriented leaders, and it's been a pleasure to interact with them. And of course, special thanks to Adam George and Jasmine Morales, who are also members of the Thermo Fisher team, and their new baby, Gatsby. All of you have supported me through this entire process, and I would be remiss if I didn't say I love you and appreciate you. So here we go. We're going to set some ground rules, even though we did it before. Let's just be present. Let's open our minds and absorb. And this is our time together. Okay, so please don't anybody hesitate to put a question in the chat box. If I don't get to it right away, we'll get to it during Q&A. So again, silence your cell phones, be present. Here we go. So belonging, we're going to talk about belonging. Belonging is a key piece of allyship. It's the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because the yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So when I got the call about speaking to all of you today, I was reminded about a conversation I once had from a prospective coaching client who had come to me with an awesome innovation challenge. They said, work with our leaders and help us remain relevant in the future. Love it. That's exactly what I do. This company was truly innovating and taking the long view. Now, in preparing some thoughts for them, I talked about envisioning the leadership challenges being transformed and years down the road, driving strategic imperatives that would help their people to thrive and even help create the future legacy of the company. Of course, as I'm discussing this with the prospect, they loved the idea and thought it was crucial to success. But this is what their response was. Here's the challenge, they said. We're also thinking of implementing a DEI strategy at the same time. Interesting. So they were asking for a long-term strategy to transform their corporate leadership while simultaneously needing short-term internal cultural transformation. I immediately knew that the only way this would work is if we had allies. Leaders, managers, and team members who were on board with the new vision, who had bought into the idea of change, and who would promote the evolving ideals. So, with this previous project present in my mind, I decided to speak to you today about the internal transformation that will determine the longevity, togetherness, and future plans of any company. So as I started putting this process together, I considered the 4 I values that Thermo Fisher Scientific stands on: intensity, involvement, innovation, and inclusion. And just like that, I knew this was the perfect recipe that would hopefully inspire you to take up the challenge of allyship today. So today I will share with you my vision of allyship and how by utilizing the 4 I values in your daily work with your teams and your colleagues, I hope to inspire all of you to become those allies. The allies that drive transformation, that hold a vision, and that take action and embrace belonging. My hope for you is that by the end of today's session, you will be able to utilize these 4 I values of Thermo Fisher Scientific to become an ally, to get involved with a new way of being, and to be innovative in your approach to creating community of inclusion and belonging. So let me start with a fable. I love stories. Once upon a time, a man and a woman were traveling along a long, winding country road when one of them spotted a purse on the ground. The gentleman stopped, bent over to retrieve it from the dirt, and found that it was a well-filled purse. "How lucky I am," he said. "I have found a purse. Judging by its weight, it must be full of gold." Hearing this and seeing the excitement in her companion, the other traveler looked at him outraged, and she said, "Don't say I have found a purse. Say we have found a purse and how lucky we are. After all, travelers ought to share alike in the fortunes and misfortunes of the road." The man got angry and scoffed. "No, no, no. I found it and I am going to keep it." Just then, down the road, they heard a shout of, "Stop, thief, shrill voice and looking around saw a mob of people armed with clubs coming down the road. The man who had found the purse began to panic and in a shrill voice said, "Oh my gosh, if they find the purse on us, we have had it." The woman, with a glint in her eye, looked at her companion, who was now shaking in his boots, and said, "Oh no, you didn't say we before. So stick to your I and say, I have had it when they find me with the purse." The moral of the story is that we cannot expect anyone to share our misfortunes unless we are willing to share our good fortune also. This is effectively a story of allyship. So let me introduce myself. My name is Kelly Mirabot, and I am your ally. My mission is to create a better corporate tomorrow for all involved. My vision is for a united and diverse corporate America, and my number one value is that of belonging. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I myself struggled with belonging for most of my life, and very early on had to navigate the choppy waters of childhood, feeling like a fish out of water. Yes, that's me with my father in the pool. So just a little authenticity there for you. And you can tell that picture was taken in the late 70s because there's a big smudge on my face. But this moment in time when I was struggling with belonging stirred in me a deep need to find ways to be accepted, and likewise to accept the rejected and ostracized. It became part of my life mission. And when I became an executive coach 12 years ago, I finally landed squarely in my purpose. Belonging is a sense of being home. So let's talk about Thermo Fisher Scientific for a moment. This is a global organization, a successful organization, a complex organization, and for the most part, a united organization. You are all leaders in inclusivity. You understand diversity and demonstrate equality at every given opportunity. But what about belonging? Brené Brown, of course, just defines it beautifully as true belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. Now, some of you may be unfamiliar with Brené Brown, but for those of you who are, she is a social scientist and world-renowned researcher who has spent many years studying and interviewing people about things that really matter: vulnerability, courage, worthiness, and shame. When Brown asked what people are worried about and trying to achieve it, it was the idea of belonging that was most important, with many yearning to be part of something, to experience a real connection with others, but not at the cost of their authenticity, freedom, or power. She goes on to say, true belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. So belonging as a result of allyship, well, let me take that down. Belonging happens as a result of allyship when people who take it upon themselves to petition for the rights of others, people who see the gaps and blind spots and find ways to fill them, when those who can sense that someone is hurting, troubled, or afraid steps in to comfort them, and when those who find themselves with a purse of gold turn around and share it with their fellow travelers. Sarah, I would love to share my gold with you. So why seek belonging and allyship? Why? What's the reason? Well, allyship can have a lot of benefits. It can foster positive intergroup connections. It can undermine and dismantle racism and other forms of oppression, and can build a more positive workplace culture. However, allyship can present dangerous pitfalls. And I'm not trying to be negative. I just want all of you to be aware of these things as you're moving through life and arm you with the tools that you can be the best leader and inclusive ally with. So, well-meaning allies can burden others with requests to talk about traumatic experiences that they haven't shared. There's also the danger of performative allies. I know all of you have experienced this, who publicly show their support for a cause, but only for a short time. there would be allies that are sometimes more interested in dealing with their own white guilt than effectively helping the movement. And there also is the danger that allies end up crowding out the very people they hope to support from the movement. But by utilizing the 4I values, you can ensure that you create positive and effective allyship here at Thermo Fisher Scientific. You see, everyone has the ability to be an ally because privilege is intersectional. White women can be actionable allies to people of color. Men, we need you. You can be allies to the women. Cis people can be allies to members of the LGBTQI plus community. Able-bodied people can be allies to those with different abilities. And economically privileged people can be allies to those who are not, and so on. So let's define allyship, because I always like to make sure that we're all operating from the same context, and we can't do that unless we develop a common vocabulary. I view allyship as a mechanism to use to become collaborators, accomplices, and co-conspirators who fight injustice, promote equity in the workplace through supportive personal relationships, and public acts of sponsorship and advocacy. So let me share my story of allyship. My story of allyship began when I was 14. A family member revealed to me that they were gay by handing me a copy of Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown, the coming-of-age account of a young lesbian woman. Now, while I was just 14 when I read this book, I was a voracious reader and fascinated by the content. I finished it in one day. Now, I had questions mostly about the logistics of sex, but more than that, I realized that at a young age, love was love was love. And in my 14-year-old mind, I thought, so what? You love who you love. You're the same person. It doesn't change anything. As I got older and became more aware, I witnessed the unfair treatment of my loved one and the significant others that came in and out of her life. I often wonder to myself, why do I get all of these things? Because I'm straight and she's not. It didn't make sense to me and still doesn't to this day. If you love someone and there is mutual consent, respect, honesty, why does it matter how they manifest in the world? If love is present, then that's the only thing that matters. As time went on, I began to join every LGBTQIA plus chamber in the country. Everywhere I lived, I joined that chamber. First as an ally, then as a member, and then I evolved into a board member. So I've been on the board of Compass in West Palm Beach, Florida, Harbor, which is Hampton Roads Business Outreach in Norfolk, and at the time was the only LGBTQI plus chamber in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And now the IBA here in Philadelphia, which is the Independence Business Alliance. The reason I joined all of these chambers to be an actionable ally was because I wanted to do what I could with what I had to level the playing field and create belonging for everyone, no matter how their identity manifested in reality. So now, since that time, I've become an action-oriented ally to minority communities through advocacy, using my platforms, making introductions, and partnering with businesses that may not have access to the professional connections that I do. I make tons of mistakes all the time. I often acknowledge when I'm wrong or could do better, and of course correct. I live by the mantra, I'm not here to be right, I'm here to get it right. So now, after years of practice, I notice when I'm getting defensive internally and turn my focus to listening and learning. I practice using my power to affect change, and I know I occupy the majority group and I refuse to preserve the status quo. Many allies endeavor to drive systemic improvements to workplace policies, practice, and culture. For me, allyship, I view it as walking alongside people and bringing attention to their messages, their unique gifts and talents that may not otherwise be heard by the majority. So, how do you become an action-oriented ally? Well, while you don't have to follow my example, you do what works for you. There are plenty of other things that you can do as you embark on your own personal journey of allyship. So let's take a look at how the 4I values of Thermo Fisher Scientific can guide you in your own journey to becoming an ally. So the number 1 value, intensity. Allyship is a continuous investment in time supporting others, holding ourselves accountable when mistakes are made, and apologizing and being prepared to rework the approach towards allyship as needs evolve and change. So how do we do this? We can do this by becoming a sponsor, by championing someone from an underrepresented community to support career growth and increase company retention. We can work hard to break the existing patterns and cycles. We can take small actions and make big impacts. We can make sure that our words and our actions are in alignment and in sync. We can lift others up by advocating relentlessly if need be. We can have uncomfortable conversations with ourselves and understand the systemic and societal issues which may have played in your favor is eye-opening and allows you to use this privilege to amplify those who do not have it. And then finally, we can follow different people and listen to them. Challenge yourself to cross-examine your bias after learning from different voices. So what I say is you educate yourself and then you get introspective to where you are breathing life into these systems, processes, policies, and procedures, right? But we can't do that without looking at ourselves first. So the next value is involvement. Involvement is essential. There is no more sitting on the sidelines. There is no more being complicit. And there are so many ways to get involved. I mean, just from knowing these incredible humans at Thermo Fisher Scientific for this hot minute, you have so many opportunities within the organization to become an ally and amplify the voices of those that are underrepresented. So how can we get involved? One way is to call out inappropriate behavior. Here's what I've learned. People in privileged positions have the ability to call out unacceptable behavior towards underrepresented people and be heard. Remember that when you are calling people out, shame, blame do not have any place in these conversations about social injustice. They don't work. They put people on the defense and shut conversations down. And we don't need to shut conversations down. We need to open them up. We need to continue them. So when you're calling people out, be mindful that we don't want to humiliate them. That's not the idea. The idea is to say, hey, you might want to consider that statement you made is offensive, and here's why. Okay? Sharing growth opportunities with others as often as possible. Don't view venting from somebody as a personal attack. Underrepresented people may not be comfortable raising issues due to fear of backlash or risk of jeopardizing professional relationships. So often when they do share with you, listen, just listen for understanding, not for response, and make sure they feel heard. And of course, most importantly, listen, support, self-reflect on your own behaviors, and change. It really is that simple. There's nothing more complicated than that. Okay, so 4I value number 3, innovation. Recognize systemic inequalities and work together to come up with new systems, strategies, policies, and cultural initiatives to change them by rolling out unconscious bias training regularly. Understand that unconscious bias, unchecked bias cannot and will not be fixed after one training. And understand that this is a growing, evolving process, and challenging ourselves and our peers must happen to aid growth and learning in this space. One of my colleagues, her name is Amber Hike, she works at the ACLU nationwide, and she said to me one time when she called me out on something, and I've been called out many times, never gets easier, but it's a learning experience. She said to me, Kelly, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you forward. So I want all of you to understand that that is the intention that I have for this presentation, to call you forward, because if more people step forward to be allies and be actionable allies, imagine what we can do together. So you want to attract another organizational transformation that is possible is to partner with organizations that actively push for equality in that space. Be present. at conferences, and reach out to underrepresented people for their honest feedback on where they would like to look for roles. Listen to the people you are trying to reach. And the final 4I value is inclusion. Tasking all employees with getting involved with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging related tasks, including embracing diversity and fostering an environment of inclusion, is good for business. And here's how it's good for business in the following ways. You can realize the impact of microaggressions and embody a new way of being with others. You can believe that underrepresented people's experiences and find a way to demonstrate it. You can use inclusive language. Be aware of gendered terms and use language which embraces all walks of people. For example, using the term partner instead of gendered terms such as girlfriend/boyfriend or husband/wife, to be more inclusive of those in the LGBTQ+I community. And a true ally must regularly listen to those around them, adapt their own thinking, and rework what they believe to be correct, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's a podcast out there called For Your Discomfort, and it's all about anti-racism and social justice. Every time I want to listen to it, I'm uncomfortable. And when I hit that moment of uncomfortability, I stay there because I know I'm growing, okay? Being an ally, part of it is being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and understand that it's not just you, it's everybody. Everybody who is an ally is uncomfortable, makes mistakes at one point in time. But it's important that allies educate themselves, to own their privilege and to accept feedback, to speak up when we see something that detracts from rather than contributes to belonging, to bring more diversity to the table, to sponsor and champion marginalized communities, to understand that just because you're an ally, that does not absolve you from your own internal work to dismantle the systems of oppression that have been alive and well for hundreds of years. Now, employees' lives and experiences outside of Thermo Fisher and Scientific inform the way they show up to work. Simply recognizing that and encouraging people to feel comfortable sharing builds inclusion, because it makes it okay for everyone to be themselves. So now we're going to move into an exercise. And I'm encouraging you to interact in the chat box. One of the things I do with my clients is, especially when I'm working with teams, is an exercise called If You Really Knew Me, You'd Know That. And it could be something as simple as, I missed the bus this morning, so I feel a bit stressed, or something a bit more revealing, such as, I have a family member who's not well and I'm having trouble focusing. So I'll start. If you really knew me, you would know that I have a lot of guilt that my older parents live in South Florida and my sister is the one who's on the front lines for their care. So start this, I'll ask Sarah to start us off, in the chat box. So Sarah, if you really knew me, you'd know that, and fill in the blank. Okay. So Sarah said, if you really, you're okay with me sharing this, right? If you really knew me, you would know that I'm always late and that gives me anxiety. Jasmine, I know you're watching with Gatsby, so you have to you have to jump in and say, if you really knew me, you'd know that. If you really knew me, you know that I'm always passed up on a promotion because I am a young Latina woman and it makes me feel like giving up, or that I can never make it anywhere. From Michaela Smith, if you really knew me, you'd know that I always stress myself out because I think I need to be perfect. Yes, Michaela, sister, I'm right there with you. I have that every day. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So from Julia, posting to all the panelists this time, if you knew me, you'd know that I deal with imposter syndrome as a younger manager. Okay, so Julia, this is to make you feel comfortable. 70% of the global population suffers from imposter syndrome. So you're not alone, Angel, and I can help you with that. But I can tell you just from interacting with Julia, she's incredible. So, okay, anybody else want to share? If you really knew me, you'd know that. And if you're not comfortable with sharing, that's okay. And forgive me if you're hearing banging in the background, my basement flooded 4 months ago, and we finally got the contractors here 2 days ago. So, okay, Elizabeth, I hate being forced to try to be positive and smile on work calls when I'm trying to deal with so many personal struggles during this pandemic and before as well. Yes. Lee, if you really knew me, you'd know as a working mother, I feel guilty for not being there enough for my daughter. Yes. Here's what I know from all of you for doing this work for almost 22 years. There are no new stressful thoughts. So everything that we're all talking about, okay, anonymous, okay. If you know me, you'd know that I have constant self-doubt and I'm insecure presenting my ideas in any group or one-on-one sessions. Yes. So going back to there are no new stressful thoughts, they're all recycled. They really are. It all surrounds the what I like to call not enoughs. Or okay, here's another one. Deanna, if you really knew me, you'd know that I feel like I need to work harder because I'm a young female. Yes, yes, yes. All of these resonate with me, and I've had some iteration of one form of another. Jessica, if you really knew me, you know that I deal with not feeling good enough. Those are the not enoughs. Yeah. Not young enough, not old enough, not thin enough, not fat enough, not smart enough, too smart. You know, it's all of those not enoughs. And here's what I can tell you. Babies are born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Everything else is learned. Here's what's great about that knowledge. If you learned it, all you have to do is reboot the software up here. Okay. So like, for instance, I thought to myself, I'm not good enough to present for somebody like Thermo Fisher, like, right? Conditioning. Where does that come from? That comes from this, that triggers that, blah, 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 blah. So question everything, because we need to reboot that software. And thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing that. That was amazing. This is my favorite part, is interacting with the audience, because I'm here for you. Okay, so let's take a look, and thank you so much for that. I really, again, really appreciate it. So let's take a look about the types of allies and how to allow who you're being energetically to guide what you're doing. Because at the basis of all leadership and all belonging, there are two things we need to concern ourselves with leaders: emotional regulation and management of energy. Okay, so when you're trying to be an ally, when I say who you're being, that's the management of the energy. Like, how do you want to show up in the world? Do you want to be an ally? How does an ally behave? What kind of language do they use? How do they show up? What kind of groups are? That's who you're being, guiding what you're doing. So the first type of ally is an advocate. When an ally takes on a role of advocate, that ally uses their power and influence to bring peers from underrepresented groups into exclusive circles. So the advocate recognizes and addresses unjust omissions, holding their peers accountable for including qualified colleagues of all genders, races, and ethnicities, abilities, ages, body shapes or sizes, religions, or sexual orientations. So how can you be an advocate? First, look closely at the invite list for events, strategic planning meetings, dinners with key partners, and other career building opportunities. If you see someone from a marginalized group missing, advocate for them to be invited. Offer to introduce colleagues from underrepresented groups to influential people in your network. I do that all the time. And it is just, it's as rewarding for me as it is to help further the person that I'm introducing. It just, like, that is one of my favorite things to do, is to introduce people. Especially, it's like, Congratulations, Sarah. You've met a great person. Kelly Mirabot, you've met great people. I mean, it's such a great way to make the world a smaller place and include everybody. Ask somebody from an underrepresented group to be a co-author or collaborator on a proposal or conference. Okay, so the lifelong learner. Let me give you an example of the lifelong learner, because I only coach from the place what I know, like from my personal experience. So the Philadelphia International Airport was one of my clients. And at that time, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, the term unconscious bias and implicit bias was just coming into the corporate landscape. And one of the members of the C-suite who I was coaching came up to me and was like, people keep talking about unconscious bias, and I kind of know what it is, but I really don't. Can you help me? So basically, I knew enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be able to coach confidently or experientially. So here's what I did. I called my colleague who was an HR director at IBM. I called a friend of mine who was a user experience designer at Google. I called a colleague at Lyft, and I asked them all what their best practices around unconscious bias was, who they brought in as speakers, what resources they used, and I read all of them for 90 days. Then I went back as this lifelong learner and shared my information and education with my clients. So, coming from the approach that life is a classroom and you can learn everything from the things that happen for you in your life, not to you, for you, because life's a classroom, you're opening up all kinds of possibilities and you can learn so many different things. So when an ally takes on the role of a lifelong learner, that ally seeks to learn as much as possible about the challenges and prejudices faced by colleagues from marginalized groups. It's important to note that lifelong learners never insert their own opinions, experiences, or ideas, but simply listen and learn. Example, called all of those people that are colleagues of mine and listened and learned. Not perfect person, but just as my approach. They also don't expect marginalized people to provide links to research proving that bias exists or summaries of best practices. Lifelong learners do their own research and seek out the relevant information. I had a client one time that said to me, Kelly, I don't know how to do that. And I said, and I have a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor. So, and my clients know this about me. So I looked at him and I said, it's too bad we don't have access to something that we could put in a search bar, anything in a search bar, to crawl all kinds of information all over the world, or a platform with videos of how to. And he looked at me, I go, Google and YouTube. Google and YouTube. You don't know how to do something? Google it. You don't like Google? Use DuckDuckGo. I am not a handy person. I fixed my back door by watching a gentleman down in South Florida who's a handy guy. I followed step by step and fixed it. Am I going to go tear down drywall? Absolutely not. But there are ways for you to educate yourself. So don't lean on other people to do your work for you. So how can you be a lifelong learner? You can investigate and read publications, listen to podcasts or social media by and about underrepresented groups within your industry. Ask coworkers from marginalized groups about their experience working at your company or within your network. If your company, if Thermo Fisher Scientific or industry has a specific discussion groups for members of underrepresented groups, and by the way, bravo Thermo Fisher for all of your ERGs. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how many there are. I mean, talking to Sarah and Ashley and Lee, I can't believe all the options you have. So take advantage of them. And if you're not aware of them, ask your manager. If your manager doesn't know, keep doing your research, okay? And asking, make sure you ask to sit in and observe certain meetings with underrepresented communities. But remember, you're there to listen and learn. And remember, ask permission, because sometimes our presence may cause members to censor themselves. So make sure that you are checking in with the people in charge of those groups, okay? So another way to be an ally is the role of the upstander. And when an ally takes on the role of an upstander, that ally acts as the opposite of a bystander. So the upstander is someone who sees wrongdoing and acts to combat it. The person pushes back on offensive jokes or comments, even if no one within earshot might be offended or hurt. Okay, so how can you be an upstander? Always speak up if you witness behavior or speech that is degrading or offensive. Explain your stance so that everyone is clear about why you're raising the issue. And remember, remove the shame and blame. So if you're emotionally triggered by something that somebody said, give yourself some time before addressing them, because you don't want to go at them. You want to really bring it into their awareness. In meetings, shut down off-topic questions that are asked only to test a presenter. I know all of us have been in meetings where that's happened. Take action if you see anyone in your company being bullied or harassed. And it's really simple. Simply insert yourself into a conversation with a comment such as, "Hi, what are you folks discussing?" And then check in with the victim privately. Ask if they're okay and if they want you to say something. Remember, all of this is permission-based, okay? An ally is there to make sure we support and supplement the marginalized communities and the minority communities. We're not there to take over the spotlight, okay? So another way is to be a sponsor. And this is one of my favorite things. So a colleague of mine, actually a mentee of mine, got laid off a couple of weeks ago. She was panicked. She's in the hospitality industry. And she said to me, "Can you help?" Of course, I love that. Called a friend of mine. I said, "I know you're looking for jobs." This person worked in hospitality. It was a property management job. They had one phone call. She was hired. She was out of work 3 days. She's a woman of color who may not have gotten the interview had I not raised the flag to my colleague in my network. So when an ally takes on the role of sponsor, they vocally support the work of colleagues from underrepresented groups in all contexts, but specifically in situations that will help boost the colleague's standing and reputation. They took the call right away because I called. And I don't want to make this about me coming in and saving the day. That's not what it's about. It was somebody calling and asking me to reach out for help, and knowing that my network had people looking for great people, and she was. I opened the door, she walked through. It was incredible. And she's doing a great job there. So how can you be a sponsor? You talk about the expertise you see in others, especially during performance evaluations and promotion discussions. Recommend people for stretch assignments and learning opportunities, and share colleagues' career goals with influencers with their permission first, okay? So the next way you can be an ally is to be a champion, okay? So I want to give you another example. I was up for a proposal project for the Planning and Development Department for the city of Philadelphia, okay? The way the project evolved out, by the time we're at the table to sign the deal, it went from coaching 200 people to doing succession plans for 200 people. Can I do a succession plan? Absolutely. Does it light me up inside? Absolutely not. My two colleagues who were working with me, because I had certain certifications that the city needed for this contract, and I brought them along. Well, when the succession planning piece came up, I knew that these two women were fantastic at what they did. They were fantastic at succession planning. They loved it. And they just happened to be women of color. The RFP came to me. I stepped out of it and handed it over to them because it was for the greater good of all concerned. They were a better fit for the project, and they were a better fit for the client than I was. It really is that simple, and as an entrepreneur, you eat what you kill. So to walk away from something like that was a pretty big deal, but you know what? It's the right thing to do. And again, I'm not here to be right. I'm here to get it right. So when an ally takes on the role of champion that acts similar to the sponsor, but they do it more in a public venue. So champions willingly defer to colleagues from underrepresented groups in meetings and invisible industry-wide events and conferences, sending meaningful messages to large audiences. So how can you be a champion? You direct questions about specific or technical topics to employees with subject matter expertise instead of answering them yourselves. So within those meetings that I was just mentioning to you with the city, I really didn't speak a lot because they were experts. I deferred to them in everything because succession planning is something in my toolbox, but it's not something I'm passionate about. And it's not something that I feel comfortable talking about in an educated fashion. They do. They're the best at it. So when that happens, step back and let the person who's the expert handle it. They can do it. Advocate for more women, people of color, and members of other underrepresented groups as keynote speakers and panelists. If you're asked to keynote or serve in a similar public role, and you know someone from an underrepresented group who would be an equally good fit or better, recommend that person after asking them if they'd like to be put forward, because sometimes people don't want it, and that's okay. Okay, so another example of an ally is an amplifier. And so when an ally takes on the role of amplifier, that ally works to ensure that marginalized voices are both heard and respected. This type of allyship is focused on representation within communication. So I have a huge contract right now with the military. I'm coaching a bunch of leaders to take on big commands. Well, back in May, when George Floyd was murdered, the Secretary of Defense put out a very long memo about changing the whole hiring practice of the military. Several weeks later, another memo came out that said any government contractors that are talking about DEI are subject to fine and jail time because it's anti-American propaganda. Well, I made peace with the fact that I might go to jail, and I open every conversation with my military clients asking them, what are they doing about sexism, diversity, equity, and inclusion? I know full well what the consequences are, but here's the thing. It's the right thing to do, period. And I don't need to think beyond that. So if I'm meant to go to jail, I'm going to go to jail. But I'm not going to stop talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion because people are dying in America. They're dying in the streets, and that has to stop. Because if somebody else gets killed, you're killing somebody who's connected to me. What you do to them, you do to me. So how to be a good amplifier. When someone proposes a good idea, repeat it and give them credit. For example, I agree with Kelly's recommendation for improving our recruitment partnering process. Create a code of conduct for meetings and any shared communication medium, including email, chat, Zoom, WebEx, so forth. So that way you have clear guidelines on what's expected. And invite members of underrepresented groups within Thermo Fisher Scientific to speak at staff meetings, write for company-wide newsletters, or take on other highly visible roles. Okay, so another way to be an ally is a confidant. A confidant is an ally that takes on the role, that creates a safe and sacred space for members of underrepresented groups to express their fears, frustrations, and needs. Simply listening to their stories and trusting that they're being truthful creates a protective layer of support. So, how can you be a confidant? Number one, keep people's information confidential. If they are vulnerable enough to share that painful piece of their life, it is not your story to tell. It is theirs. Okay? Believe other people's experiences. Don't assume something couldn't happen just because you haven't personally experienced it. Listen and ask questions. When someone describes an experience you haven't had, don't jump in with your own personal stories and don't talk over them. Just listen. And remember, if you don't remember anything else, when you're in these kinds of discussions, listen for understanding, not for response. Listen for understanding, not for response, okay? And if you're a manager, hold regular office hours encouraging all your team members speak with you about issues that are troubling them. My colleague, John Fry, who is the president of Drexel University, every Friday has something called Fridays. Okay, Fridays is not, I know. I love a good dad joke. I'm sorry, it just cracks me up. But what he told me was that the reason he did that, and he started doing it when he was at Penn, before he moved over to Drexel, He said, because students and staff will come and tell me things that my own team is not telling me. He said, sometimes they'll stand around me and say yes, whereas these students and other people that I may not interact with during my office hours will share things that need to be improved. That's a great approach, right? So the best allies are willing to make mistakes and keep trying. They get comfortable with being uncomfortable. They acknowledge when they're wrong or could do better and correct their course. They resist getting defensive and stop insisting that they're already doing enough. They actively listen for understanding, and they learn and they iterate. Okay? So remember that by implementing the 4 I values of Thermo Fisher Scientific, you can begin to become an ally. You can do it. I mean, like, I know I've read, I've researched, your CEO lives and breathes your 4 I values. They've set you up for success as an ally. So all you have to do is follow these steps. So in summary, the key takeaways: while everything you do is grounded in the 4 I values of integrity, intensity, innovation, and involvement, let's recap on how utilizing these same 4 I values for allyship will guarantee continued success and global leadership in this area. So number 1, intensity. Make continual investment of time to support others and hold yourselves accountable when mistakes are made. Everybody makes mistakes. In fact, I tell my clients that FAIL in my world stands for first attempt in learning. Okay, write that down. First attempt in learning. Okay, you're gonna make a mistake. It's part of the learning process, so don't be hard on yourself. Be intentional about apologizing and be prepared to rework the approach towards allyship as needs change and evolve. Number 2, involvement. Involvement is essential. There is no more sitting on the sidelines. There is no more complicity. Number 3, innovation. Recognize the systemic inequalities and work together to come up with new systems, strategies, policies, and cultural initiatives to change them. And number 4, inclusion. Task all employees with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging related tasks. Embrace diversity and foster an environment of inclusion. So finally, when you combine all of these things together and we get all of them correct and become active allies, we can create the space, the environment, and the conditions that allow belonging to emerge quickly and naturally and organically. So one of the things Brene Brown, and if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of her work just because it's data backed. And she's got something ridiculous, like 400,000 data points at this point of 20 years of research. She says it best: belonging so fully to yourself that you're willing to stand alone in the wilderness, an untamed, unpredictable place of solitude and searching. It is a place as dangerous as it is breathtaking, a place as sought after as it is feared. The wilderness can often feel unholy because we can't control it or what people think about our choice of whether to venture out into that vastness or not. But it turns out to be the place of belonging, and it's the bravest and most sacred place you will ever stand. We need to belong to ourselves first. Look at ourselves first before we can create belonging in our external world. Now, Thermo Fisher Scientific, you are a world leader in serving science and humanity. And with that position comes great sense of responsibility. I encourage you all to celebrate your achievements to date, including, but not limited to, perfect scores in Corporate Equality Index and Disability Equality Index, as well as the Women's Choice Award for being the best company for women, and all of the work that you have done to help COVID-19. You are incredible. In fact, Sarah, are you unable to mute the audience for a round of applause? I want everybody to applaud. Well done. Well done. Well done. Save the world, y'all. Your work is going to save the world. It is incredible. I am so proud of all of you. And hopefully I get to meet you in person someday. So let's get loud and congratulate you and your colleagues for all your efforts in workplace diversity as you continue to foster a culture where every colleague feels valued and involved in your success. I hope that after today, you are inspired to continue your work as good corporate citizens, adding allyship to your roster of achievements. Continue making all of your stakeholders, customers, employees, investors, and your fourth stakeholder, humanity, proud. More importantly, you should be proud of yourselves as a company that continues to create long-term value while responsibly delivering outstanding performance, innovating, and with a true sense of allyship and belonging. Thank you so much, all of you. You're incredible. And I'm going to stay on. I know we're at 2 o'clock, but I'll stay on for anybody who has questions. I'm just grateful to all of you for this opportunity. I love working with people. And Sarah, I'll have a handout for you on the do's and don'ts of allyship. We also have a recording. And again, Sarah, thank you so much for being my ally in technology today. The poor thing, I was like, this before we even started, I was like, Sarah, I can't log into WebEx. What is happening? So, remind me to tell you about your password. There was something I thought about the password that you put together, and I don't want to say what the password is, but I was like, that's amazing. So, okay, who has questions? How can I help?
I think Alina has a question. Did you see that, Kelly?
Let me see. Thank you, Michaela. Let me see. Oh, I gotta go back up. Okay. Is it the one when calling someone forward? Okay. Yeah. Usually thought about it more in my personal life. Many thanks. Awesome presentation. Hold on. Okay. When calling someone forward in the workplace, do you find that as impactful an ally politely says something when a comment is inappropriate so that others can also be present, learn from the interaction, or is it best to make a comment in private? Okay. So in my opinion, praise in public, criticize in private. So here's what I would do is I would, again, it's not about shame, blame, or humiliation. It's about calling attention, bringing it into their awareness so that the next time the situation presents itself, they make a different choice. So here's what I would do. I'm sorry, I just totally forgot. What my chat keeps going up because, okay, Alina, sorry about that. So what I would do, Alina, is I would pull them aside politely and say, listen, what you said about blah, 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 I found offensive and here's why. If there are other people involved and you feel comfortable saying afterwards that you addressed it with that person, that's what I would do. But again, I'm not a big believer in, and not that this is, but spreading gossip or spreading stories. I don't think it's a healthy way to interact. So, rather than making it a big thing in front of a lot of people, Lena, I would call them out privately, and then if you feel like you need to take a step further or somebody from the group asks you what happened, you can say, I've addressed it. And that's all. Because, people make mistakes. I've made mistakes so many times in front of powerful people that I thought was going to end my career. And what ended up happening was I was able to do the internal work on it, go to the person and say to them, listen, what I said was offensive or whatever it was. I apologize to you. Please let me know how I can make it better and make it right. And then I just shut up and listen. Get comfortable with apologizing, because apologizing, if you are humble enough to admit your own mistakes and apologize, for me, I'm a big believer in second chances. So I hope that helps, Alina. And if you need, if you want to talk to me more about it offline, I'm sure you can actually, let me click out of that. There's my email address. Please feel free to reach out. I'm here to, my job. Coaching is what I was called to do. It's what I was called to do. It's what I was put on this earth to do. So if I can help you, reach out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I love you guys.
I think we're pretty over time now, but if anybody has any other questions, they can email you, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
It's right. Hold on one second. It's right there.
Okay. Kelly@youloudandclear.com.
Do you want me to put it in the chat so it's easier for the copy and paste?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
And just for our attendees that are still here, I will make sure to send out the handout after this, and as well as the link to the recording. But thank you all for attending. I think I can join you all in saying that this was an amazing presentation. I learned so much about being an ally, and I just really loved the positive spin that you put on it, Kelly, like saying, not calling people out, but calling people forward, or not being a bystander, being an upstander. So I really loved your positive message, and definitely we need to grab coffee sometime. And we'll talk
Yes,
more.
we definitely do. We definitely do. And ladies, and I'll just leave you with this. I just read an article in Harvard Business Review that said white men want to be part of this allyship discussion, but they feel like they're not wanted. And that's 70% of white men all over the globe. So here's what I would say, call them forward. We need them. We need them as part to heal this whole thing. So Sarah, it has been a joy. Lee, Ariel, Jasmine, Adam, Lee. I mean, you guys are all incredible. Keep doing your great work. Thank you for everything you've done around COVID-19. I'm just in awe of all of you, and hopefully this is not the last time you see me at Thermo Fisher.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
So funny to see that number go down.